How's it going, guys? It's me, Jimmy Champagne, and today I'm here to review Revenge. It's a new movie from Neon Pictures that's going to go to Shudder after a short theatrical run. It stars Matilda Lutz as Jennifer and Kevin Janssens as Richard, and it's directed by... Yeah, so the general plot synopsis here is that Jennifer is Richard's mistress. He's married and he's going on his annual hunting trip out in the desert with his two friends, Stanley and Dimitri. He goes a couple days early and brings her along, but his friends also show up a couple days early. And then Jennifer flirts with Stanley one night while they're all drinking around the pool, and Stanley ends up raping her, but instead of coming to her defense, Richard ends up pushing her off a cliff. He thinks she's dead, but she lives, and of course the movie is about her getting revenge. The first thing I really liked in this movie is the tone. It's definitely more Crank than John Wick, where both of those movies have impossible things going on left and right, but in John Wick you can suspend your disbelief and you can believe that he would survive all of the things happening to him and you're cool with it. But in Crank, there's stuff going on that like no one would ever live through and you're like, that's not possible, but you don't care because it looks awesome. And that's what's going on in this movie. Like, Jennifer would totally die from her injuries. There's no way she would have lived through them, but you don't care because it looks awesome. Speaking of that, the gore is top-notch in this movie. The actual wound of her where she gets this stick stabbed through her stomach, it looks great, it looks real, it made me queasy, and then when she finally does pull it out about halfway through the movie, oh my god, when the blood comes out of that hole, I was like, ugh. It really got to me in a way that horror movies recently haven't really been able to do. Also, there's a part where a guy's eyes get stabbed out, and then you get this full, just like perfectly lingering shot of his face that just... wow, it's really good. If you're into gore and you want to see some like really crazy gore that makes sense in the world's universe and like it adds to the movie, this is a movie for you, I think. Another thing I really liked about this movie is the desert setting. It really works for a movie like this, a rape revenge plot, because Jennifer, once she's injured, she's not going to be able to call for help. She can't walk in any direction because the house they established very early on is only accessible by helicopter. So right out of the gate, you just believe what's going on and you really want to see the plot move forward, and you don't really think of ways that she could get out of it other than, going after the guys who raped and tried to kill her. And that works really well. I was really nervous at the beginning of the movie because of the tone it sets, that the rape scene itself would be handled in this over-the-top way, but it's actually done very tastefully. The point still comes across mainly because of something Dimitri does halfway through it where he just pretty much ignores it. It is very, very hard to watch though still, just because it's a rape being portrayed on screen. So if that does bother you, I would say that it's not as gratuitous as it could have been, but it's still scary and it's extremely effective. It doesn't feel cheap, and it definitely feels earned, and that's really important for a movie like this. I obviously think that's probably in part because it was a female director handling this movie, so that worked out for the best, I think. The last thing I want to touch on in the positive part of this review is the soundtrack. It actually works really well because at the beginning of the movie, it's full of synth beats that are super high energy, they get you going, and then once the movie has its turn, there was a really good attention to detail in changing the music and making it dark and brooding. I really appreciated that, and I think the movie deserves major props for it. While I did really like this movie, there are a few negatives to point out. The first one is that the editing is just pretty bad throughout the entire thing, especially at the beginning. Scenes don't flow very well at all, and it's not like they didn't block them right. The shots themselves are really good. It's the way they're put together, it just doesn't really work. And there are very simple mistakes that are made that I think could have been avoided with a little more attention to detail. Another big problem I have with Revenge is that it's way too long. This movie should only be 90 minutes, if that. It could honestly be a little less than that, but it goes longer than that and it really doesn't have to. There are a lot of lingering shots that don't need to be in it. There's some weird stuff that they do where they'll zoom in on something and show it in slow motion with blown out sound. It doesn't really feel right or necessary in any way. Additionally, there's some male gaze stuff at the beginning. It really does border on cringy. Like, I get what they were going for with it, and it was a female director, so that makes me think it was done on purpose. I just really didn't understand why. It didn't add anything to the movie, and it started to drag just a little bit, but every time this movie starts to drag, thankfully, it really picks back up. So to wrap things up here, if you're looking for a dark, dramatic take on the rape revenge genre, this is not for you. This is a high intensity action movie that really doesn't stop once it starts going. So if you're the kind of person who's not into gore or weird gratuitous action scenes, then don't watch this. This is not for you. I thought Jennifer's resurrection made her feel like a superhero, and that was awesome. There's a part where she heats up a beer can and uses it to cauterize her wound, and she ends up with an eagle tattooed into her body. I just thought that was really cool. I also thought it was awesome that her vengeance was the thing that brought her back to life, because really, if someone gets pushed off a cliff and a stick goes through their body, it's gonna hit a major organ and they're gonna die. But she perseveres, she uses a hallucinogenic, and she really just comes out on top, and I thought it was awesome. But I will say that even though Matilda Lutz does a good job with the physical aspects of this movie, in that she doesn't have a lot of lines overall, the ones she does deliver are just not good. There's no selling behind it, you don't believe it, it just doesn't feel like a great performance when she's speaking. I understand that English isn't her first language, but even then, she's just not selling it. There's no improvement over her performance in Rings, and that really disappointed me. Overall, I really think this movie is worth going to see in theaters. It's out May 11th, and you should check and see if it's playing near you, because I feel like this movie definitely needs to be seen on the big screen. But if it's not playing on the big screen, don't worry. You can just watch it on Shudder. I think a subscription for a month is $5, and this movie is well worth $5. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think if you do go check it out down in the comments below. And as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.